There is a quiet power living inside every conversation we have. A single sentence can warm a heart, open a door, or build a bridge between two souls. But words can also do the opposite. They can close hearts, create distance, and leave people walking away with a feeling they cannot quite explain. Many of us believe people dislike us because of who we are, when in truth, it is often the small habits hidden in the way we speak. The tone we use, the way we listen, the way we respond, these simple moments shape how the world receives us. Today, we are going to look closely at something many people overlook: 8 conversation habits that quietly push people away. And as we uncover them together, you may discover that the power to change how people feel around you has been in your words all along. Words are small things, yet they carry a weight that the world often forgets to measure. They rise from the heart, pass through the lips, and travel into the lives of others. And once they arrive, they do not simply disappear. They settle, they linger in memories, echo in quiet moments, and sometimes shape how a person feels about us long after the conversation has ended. A gentle word can lift a tired spirit. A careless one can dim a light inside someone's soul. That is the quiet authority our voices hold every time we choose to speak. Many people move through conversations as though words are nothing more than sounds in the air. They speak quickly, react sharply, and rarely pause to consider how their tone touches another human being. But people are not made of stone. They are made of feeling. When someone hears harshness, arrogance, or dismissal in our voice, something inside them slowly closes. They may not argue, they may not complain, but their warmth begins to fade. And little by little, distance grows where connection could have lived. You see, people rarely remember every sentence we say, but they remember how our words made them feel. They remember the person who spoke with kindness when everyone else spoke with judgment. They remember the voice that carried patience instead of pride. Words that respect another person's dignity leave a mark of comfort and trust, but words spoken with impatience, sarcasm, or cruelty leave a shadow that quietly pushes people away. Sometimes the harm is not even in what we say, but in how we say it. A simple sentence can feel like encouragement in one tone and like criticism in another. A voice filled with warmth invites people closer, while a voice filled with irritation builds invisible walls. The truth is that language is not only about vocabulary, it is about spirit. The heart behind the words always reveals itself. There are people in this world who understand this gentle power. They do not rush to speak simply to fill the silence. They choose their words with care, like someone planting seeds in a garden they hope will grow. Their conversations make others feel heard, respected, and valued. And because of that, people naturally feel safe around them. They are drawn to them, not because they speak the most, but because they speak with intention. But when words are used carelessly, when they are filled with negativity, sharp judgment, or unnecessary criticism, people begin to guard themselves. They listen less, they share less. The connection that once felt easy slowly becomes uncomfortable. And often, the person speaking never realizes that it is not their presence pushing people away, but the weight of their words. The beautiful truth, however, is that words can always be reshaped. A person can learn to speak with more patience, more awareness, and more kindness. And when that change happens, conversations begin to transform. Hearts open again, trust grows again. Because words, though small, hold the power to either divide or unite, and the choice of how we use them belongs to us every single day. There are voices in this world that carry sunlight, and there are voices that carry storms. You can feel the difference the moment a conversation begins. Some people speak in a way that brings ease to the room, while others fill the air with a heaviness that slowly presses on the spirit. And very often, that heaviness is born from a simple but powerful habit, the habit of constant negativity. A person who sees only what is wrong will eventually speak only about what is wrong. Every story becomes a complaint, every situation becomes a problem, and every conversation becomes a place where frustration is poured out again and again. At first, people listen with patience. They offer understanding, perhaps even comfort. But over time, the weight of that constant darkness begins to tire the heart of the listener. Not because people lack compassion, but because the human spirit also longs for light. Negativity has a quiet way of spreading through the atmosphere of a conversation. When someone continually criticizes others, complains about life, or points out flaws in every situation, the room slowly loses its warmth. The laughter fades. The sense of connection weakens. People may remain polite, but inside they begin to step back, protecting their peace from the noise of endless dissatisfaction. And the strange thing about negativity is that the person carrying it often does not notice its presence. They believe they are simply speaking the truth about their struggles, their frustrations, or the unfairness they see around them. Yet when every conversation becomes a place where problems are repeated, without hope, without balance, without gratitude, it begins to drain the energy of everyone listening. Human beings are naturally drawn to hope. They are drawn to voices that acknowledge hardship but still believe in possibility. A person who can speak honestly about challenges while also leaving room for encouragement creates a space where others feel safe to stay. But a voice that constantly echoes despair can slowly close that space until people begin to avoid it altogether. This does not mean we must pretend life is always easy or beautiful. Life carries storms for every soul, but wisdom lies in balance. A wise voice knows how to share pain without drowning the conversation in it. It knows how to speak about difficulty while still allowing gratitude, humor, and perspective to breathe within the moment. Think about the people whose presence feels refreshing. They are not perfect, and their lives are not free from trouble. Yet, when they speak, there is something steady in their tone. They may acknowledge problems, but they do not let those problems define every word they say. Their conversations leave people feeling lighter, not heavier. And that is the quiet lesson hidden within our words. Every time we speak, we bring an atmosphere with us. We can bring clouds that darken the room, or we can bring a gentle light that allows others to breathe a little easier. When negativity becomes a habit, people slowly step away from its shadow. But when hope, balance, and awareness guide our voices, people feel something different. They feel peace in our presence, and they choose to stay. There is a quiet beauty in a conversation that flows like a river between two people. One voice speaks, the other listens, and then the current gently shifts. Back and forth it moves, carrying understanding, curiosity, and respect. But when one voice begins to take all the space, the river slowly stops flowing. It becomes something else entirely, something narrow, something heavy, something that no longer feels like a shared moment. There are people who enter conversations not to connect, but to perform. The moment someone begins telling a story, they lean forward, not to understand, but to wait for their turn to speak. And when that moment arrives, the story is no longer about the person who was sharing. It is quickly redirected, gently but firmly, back to themselves. Every experience becomes a doorway to their own experience. Every struggle becomes a stage for their own struggle. Every joy becomes an opportunity to highlight their own achievements. At first, it may seem harmless. After all, sharing our lives is part of how we build relationships. But when every road leads back to the same place, back to me, back to my story, back to my thoughts, the other person slowly disappears from the conversation. Their voice grows smaller. Their willingness to share begins to fade, because deep inside, every human being longs to feel that their story matters too. A conversation is not meant to be a spotlight shining on one person alone. It is meant to be a circle of light where both people are seen. When one voice constantly takes center stage, the other voice is left standing quietly in the shadows. And while politeness may keep the listener nodding and smiling, something inside them begins to close. not out of anger, but out of a quiet sense of being overlooked. True connection grows in the space where curiosity lives. It grows when we ask questions not just to respond, but to understand. It grows when we allow someone to finish their story without rushing to replace it with our own. When people feel heard, truly heard, they feel valued. And when they feel valued, they remember the conversation not as noise, but as a moment of genuine human connection. There is a certain grace in those who know how to hold space for others. They do not rush to fill every silence with their own voice. They listen with patience, with interest, with the simple intention of understanding another life beyond their own. And because of that, people feel safe opening their hearts around them. Their presence becomes comforting, not overwhelming. But when every discussion becomes a stage for self-importance, people begin to withdraw. They share less. They speak less. Eventually, they may avoid the conversation altogether, not because they dislike the person, but because they no longer feel seen within the exchange. The truth is simple and powerful. People are drawn to those who make them feel important, not through flattery or grand gestures, but through the quiet respect of listening. When we allow others to exist fully in a conversation, when we honor their stories as much as our own, we create something rare and beautiful. We create a connection where no one needs to compete for the light because everyone is allowed to stand in it together. There is a quiet harm in the habit of judging too quickly. It happens in a moment so small that many people never notice it. A person speaks, shares a thought, tells a story about their life, and before their words have even settled in the air, the listener has already decided who they are. The mind forms an opinion, builds a conclusion, and places the other person into a narrow box of assumptions. And in that moment, something important is lost. Understanding requires patience. It asks us to slow down and allow another human being the space to reveal themselves fully. But judgment is impatient. It wants answers immediately. It wants to label, to categorize, to decide whether someone is right or wrong, wise or foolish, worthy of respect or not. Yet people are far too complex to be understood in a single sentence or a single moment of conversation. When someone feels judged, even subtly, the atmosphere between two people begins to change. Words become more careful, laughter becomes quieter, honesty becomes guarded. A wall rises, invisible yet powerful, separating two individuals who might have understood one another if only time and openness had been allowed to exist. Judgment closes the door that curiosity would have left open. Often, people judge because it feels easier than listening deeply. It is easier to assume we already know someone than to admit that their story may be far richer and more complicated than we imagined. But every person carries experiences we cannot see, struggles they rarely speak about, lessons they learned the hard way, dreams that have been shaped by both joy and disappointment. When we rush to judge, we overlook the entire journey behind their words. There is also a quiet arrogance hidden within quick judgment. It whispers the idea that our perspective is complete, that our understanding of the world is the final truth. Yet wisdom teaches something very different. Wisdom teaches that every person we meet knows something we do not know. Every life holds a piece of understanding that our own life has not yet discovered. The people who create meaningful conversations are often the ones who resist the urge to judge. They listen first. They ask gentle questions. They allow someone's thoughts to unfold naturally instead of interrupting them with criticism or disbelief. Their patience invites honesty, and their openness creates a space where people feel safe being real. When someone feels understood, even if there is disagreement, respect remains alive in the conversation. But when judgment arrives too early, respect quietly disappears. The other person may continue speaking, but their heart is no longer present in the exchange. They have already sensed that their words are being weighed rather than welcomed. And so the simple act of listening without judgment becomes a rare gift. It tells the other person without saying a single word that their voice matters, that their perspective is worthy of being heard, that they are not merely being evaluated but truly seen. If more people chose understanding before judgment, conversations would change in ways we rarely imagine. Walls would fall where assumptions once stood. Differences would become opportunities for learning instead of reasons for distance. And the space between two people would no longer be filled with silent criticism, but with the quiet possibility of genuine connection. There is something delicate about trust. It does not announce itself loudly, and it does not grow overnight. Trust is built quietly, moment by moment, through the small signals people give one another in conversation. The tone of a voice, the respect in a response, the way someone speaks about those who are not present. These things reveal far more about a person than they may realize. And among all the habits that slowly weaken trust, few are as powerful as the habit of gossip. Gossip often begins in a way that feels harmless. Someone mentions another person's mistake, their personal problem, or a story about their life that was never meant for public discussion. The words may be wrapped in laughter or curiosity, but beneath them lies something fragile being broken. A person's dignity is being handled carelessly, passed around like a piece of entertainment. And while the conversation may continue easily in that moment, something quiet shifts in the minds of those listening. You see, when someone speaks badly about another person who is not present, the listeners cannot help but notice. They may nod along, they may even respond politely, but deep inside, a small question begins to grow. If this is how you speak about someone who is not here, how do you speak about me when I leave the room? That single thought can plant a seed of doubt that no friendly smile can easily erase. Words have a way of revealing character. When someone uses their voice to tear down others behind their backs, it does not only damage the reputation of the person being discussed, it also quietly damages the trust others place in the speaker. People begin to guard their own stories more carefully. They share less about their lives, their struggles, their dreams, because no one wants their personal moments to become the next story told in another conversation. There is also a deeper truth hidden beneath gossip. Often, it comes from a desire to feel superior, to place oneself slightly above another person's mistakes or misfortunes. But this kind of conversation does not elevate anyone. Instead, it lowers the spirit of the entire exchange. The room may be filled with voices, but the respect that gives conversation its beauty slowly disappears. Think about the people whose presence feels safe. They are the ones who protect the dignity of others, even when those people are not present. If someone begins speaking negatively about another person, they gently change the direction of the conversation, or remain silent rather than adding more fuel to the fire. Their words carry integrity, and because of that, people trust them with their thoughts and experiences. A person who refuses to gossip sends a powerful message without ever needing to say it directly. They show that they value respect more than attention, and character more than momentary amusement. And people notice this. They feel it in the calm strength of that silence, in the quiet way certain conversations are allowed to end instead of being encouraged. The truth is simple but profound. The way we speak about others shapes how people feel about us. Words can either create an environment of trust or one of quiet suspicion. When we choose respect over gossip, we protect not only the dignity of those who are absent, but also the integrity of our own voice. And in doing so, we become someone whose presence people feel safe around, someone whose conversations carry honesty instead of doubt. There is a quiet intelligence in emotional awareness, a kind of understanding that does not always speak loudly, but always speaks wisely. It is the ability to notice what is happening beneath the surface of words. It is paying attention not only to what someone says, but to how they say it and what their heart might be carrying in that moment. Conversations are not built on words alone, They are shaped by feelings, and when those feelings are ignored, connection begins to weaken. Every person enters a conversation with an invisible story. Some may be carrying stress, others disappointment, and some may simply be having a difficult day. Emotional awareness allows us to recognize that not every sharp tone is meant as an attack, and not every quiet response is meant as rejection. When we respond with patience instead of assumption, we create space for understanding instead of conflict. But when emotional awareness is absent, conversations become mechanical and cold. A person may share something meaningful, yet the listener responds without sensitivity, without noticing the emotion behind the message. Words are answered, but feelings are overlooked. In that moment, the speaker may begin to feel unseen, unheard, or misunderstood. And when people feel emotionally ignored, they often withdraw, not because they lack something to say, but because they no longer feel safe expressing it. Emotional awareness begins with listening beyond the surface. It asks us to observe body language, tone, and pauses. It invites us to ask gentle questions rather than jumping to conclusions. Sometimes a person does not need advice, they need empathy. Sometimes they do not need correction, they need understanding. Recognizing the difference is a quiet strength that deepens trust. When we ignore emotions, our own or someone else's, we risk allowing misunderstandings to grow. A simple conversation can turn into tension because feelings were not acknowledged. For example, if someone speaks with frustration and we respond with defensiveness, the exchange escalates. But if we respond with calm awareness, saying in spirit, "I can see this matters to you," the entire tone shifts. Emotional awareness has the power to soften even the most difficult moments. There is also wisdom in being aware of our own emotions. When we speak while angry, insecure, or overwhelmed, our words may carry more force than we intend. Recognizing our feelings before responding helps us choose language that reflects clarity instead of reaction. A moment of pause can prevent regret later. Emotional awareness protects relationships from unnecessary damage. People naturally feel drawn to those who understand emotions without judgment. Such individuals make others feel comfortable sharing their thoughts honestly. They create conversations where feelings are respected, not dismissed. In their presence, people feel acknowledged. And when people feel acknowledged, connection becomes stronger and more genuine. Ignoring emotions may seem efficient in the moment, but it slowly reduces depth in relationships. Conversations become surface level, lacking warmth. Over time, this habit can make others feel distant, even if the exchange appears friendly. True communication is not just about exchanging information. It is about honoring the human experience behind the words. When we practice emotional awareness, we bring empathy into every interaction. We allow space for understanding. We respond with care. And in doing so, we transform ordinary conversations into meaningful exchanges. It is in this gentle awareness that relationships grow stronger, trust deepens, and people feel valued for who they truly are. There is a quiet difference between a conversation that feels heavy and one that feels warm, and often that difference is gratitude. Appreciation does not require grand speeches or dramatic gestures. It lives in the simple moments, when someone says thank you with sincerity, when they acknowledge effort, when they recognize kindness without being asked. These small expressions may seem ordinary, yet they carry extraordinary power. And when gratitude is missing, conversations can slowly lose their softness. People naturally respond to appreciation. When someone feels noticed and valued, their spirit becomes lighter. A simple word of thanks can strengthen connection more than a long explanation ever could. It tells the other person, "I see you. I recognize what you have done." That recognition creates respect, and respect builds trust. But when effort goes unnoticed, when kindness is taken for granted, something begins to fade. The silence where gratitude should have been spoken can feel surprisingly loud. In daily conversations, many opportunities for appreciation pass by unnoticed. Someone shares an idea, and instead of acknowledging it, the response moves quickly to criticism. Someone offers help, and instead of expressing thanks, the moment is treated as expected. Over time, this pattern creates distance. People begin to feel invisible in their own contributions. And when individuals feel invisible, they slowly withdraw their energy from the relationship. Gratitude is not only about politeness, it is about connection. When we appreciate someone, we affirm their value. We remind them that their presence matters, that their words have meaning, that their actions have impact. This affirmation strengthens bonds in ways that argument or persuasion never can. Appreciation opens doors that criticism often closes. There is also something powerful about acknowledging everyday kindness. Many people think gratitude should only be expressed for extraordinary achievements, but relationships grow through ordinary moments. A thoughtful comment, a listening ear, a small favor, these are the threads that weave people together. When we recognize these threads, we strengthen the fabric of our connections. When we ignore them, the fabric begins to loosen. The absence of appreciation can sometimes make conversations feel transactional, as though people are simply exchanging tasks instead of sharing humanity. In such environments, individuals may start doing things without enthusiasm, feeling that their efforts will go unnoticed anyway. But when gratitude becomes a habit, motivation rises naturally. People feel inspired to contribute more because they know their contributions are valued. It is important to remember that appreciation does not weaken us. Some people believe expressing thanks makes them appear dependent or overly soft. In truth, gratitude reflects confidence and humility. It shows that we understand we are not alone in our journey, that others play meaningful roles in our lives. Saying thank you does not diminish our strength, it enhances our character. When gratitude becomes part of our conversation style, something beautiful happens. The tone softens, the atmosphere becomes welcoming, people feel respected and understood. Appreciation transforms ordinary exchanges into meaningful interactions. And in a world where many voices are busy pointing out flaws, the voice that chooses to acknowledge goodness becomes a rare and refreshing presence. In the end, conversations thrive where appreciation lives. A simple acknowledgement can strengthen trust, deepen respect, and create lasting warmth between people. When we remember to express gratitude openly and sincerely, we do more than speak kindly. We build connections that endure. There is something deeply hopeful about the human spirit, and it is this: we are not fixed in our ways unless we choose to be. Communication is not a talent reserved for a few, it is a skill shaped by awareness and practice. Every conversation gives us an opportunity to become better than we were yesterday. The beauty of human connection lies in this simple truth: we can grow, we can reflect, we can adjust. We can choose words that heal instead of harm, words that invite instead of exclude. Growth in communication begins with honesty. It requires us to look at ourselves without defensiveness and ask whether our words build bridges or quietly create distance. This kind of reflection is not always comfortable, but it is necessary. When we recognize patterns that push people away, we gain the power to change them. Awareness is the first step toward transformation. Without it, habits repeat themselves. With it, improvement becomes possible. Choosing to grow means accepting that we will not always communicate perfectly. We may speak too quickly at times. We may interrupt without realizing. We may allow emotions to shape our tone. But instead of being discouraged by these moments, we can treat them as lessons. Every mistake in conversation can become guidance for the future. Growth happens when we decide that improvement matters more than pride. It also means listening with intention. Communication is not only about speaking well, it is about listening deeply. When we truly listen, we learn how others feel, what they value, and how they experience the world. This understanding allows us to respond with clarity and respect. Listening creates space for empathy, and empathy strengthens relationships in ways that clever words never could. To grow in communication is to replace reaction with reflection. Instead of responding instantly to every comment, we can pause. In that pause, wisdom has time to enter. A brief moment of thought can change the direction of an entire conversation. It can prevent misunderstanding. It can soften tension. It can transform conflict into understanding. Growth often begins in these small pauses. Growth also requires humility. When someone points out a communication habit that needs improvement, it is an opportunity, not an attack. Humility allows us to receive feedback without closing our hearts. It reminds us that learning never ends, no matter our age or experience. The strongest communicators are not those who believe they have nothing left to learn, but those who remain open to becoming better. As we grow, our relationships begin to reflect that growth. People feel the difference. They notice when we speak with more patience, when we choose kindness over criticism, when we value their presence in the conversation. These changes may seem small to us, but they are meaningful to others. Over time, they rebuild trust, deepen respect, and create a sense of safety in our interactions. The choice to grow in communication is a daily decision. It is not made once and forgotten. It is made in each conversation, with each word, with each response. And every time we choose awareness over carelessness, understanding over judgment, and respect over pride, we move closer to becoming someone whose words bring people together rather than push them apart. Growth is always available to us, waiting quietly in every exchange, ready to shape us into better communicators and more thoughtful human beings.